Ismaili faith, finding the Imam's light in the Qur'an.
Ya Ali Madad. The Imam's guidance is incredibly comprehensive. We try our best to understand it, to break it down, to apply it. But to fully grasp its depth, it's not possible without the Qur'an. The Imam has directed us toward it, to use our intellect and the wealth of knowledge available to us.
Mawla Ali Madad. Exactly. His guidance isn't isolated. It's rooted in the Qur'an. And when he tells us to use our intellect, he's pointing us toward the inner dimension of the Qur'an, not just the words, but the meaning behind them.
The Qur'an as benchmark.
Zura, in every field, medicine, engineering, law, people follow a shared curriculum. Why do you think the Imam wants us to treat the Qur'an as that kind of benchmark?
Because without a common reference point, everyone goes in different directions. A doctor can't treat patients based on personal interpretation. A pilot can't fly based on instinct. They need a unified standard. The Qur'an is that standard for us, the foundation that keeps our understanding aligned.
Yes, and faith is even more subtle than those fields. Every murid receives the Imam's guidance, but each person understands it differently, ethically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. That diversity is natural, but it can also fragment the community if we rely only on personal interpretation. The Qur'an keeps us moving together.
The speaking Qur'an.
Seema, people often say, the Imam is the speaking Qur'an. But what does that actually mean? It clearly doesn't mean he's giving us direct lessons on every Quranic verse. So, what is the deeper meaning behind that description?
It means the Imam carries within himself the inner meaning of revelation, the thawil, in a spiritual and luminous form. This thawil isn't transmitted through ordinary speech. It's not a classroom lesson. It's communicated inwardly, subtly, spiritually. Farmans guide our outer life, but the thawil of the Qur'an awakens inside the soul of the believer.
Exactly. And this is why the Imam often speaks about intellect, clarity, purpose, and the inner plan Allah has placed within each person. Outwardly, these statements seem simple, almost practical, but inwardly they point towards a deeper journey. When he says, ours is a faith of the intellect, or that each murid must discern what is right, he's preparing the soul to receive the Qur'an's inner light. He's not teaching the Qur'an verbally. He's shaping the qualities needed to unlock thawil, reflection, contemplation, and personal search.
Awakening the inner eye.
Seema, when the Imam speaks about clarity, purpose, destiny, or strengthening our awareness of Allah, these sound like ethical teachings on the surface. But are they actually pointing us towards something deeper?
They are pointing toward the spiritual dimension of faith. These teachings are not simply ethical reminders. They are invitations to awaken the inner eye. The Imam's words always operate on two levels at once. Outwardly, they guide our daily life. Inwardly, they stir the soul toward the subtle world of meaning from which the Qur'an descends. His guidance is practical and accessible, yet at the same time, profoundly spiritual.
And this is exactly what makes Ismailism an esoteric tradition. The presence of a living Imam means that the highest stage of spiritual completion is always accessible. The Imam does not teach thawil through farmhands. He awakens Thawil within the believer through spiritual illumination. Just as the sun shines on all things without speaking, the Imam's light reaches every murid. But only those who study the Qur'an with care, depth, and sincerity receive the inner understanding. His outward words prepare the heart, and his inward light reveals the meaning.
The doorway and the destination.
So when the Imam speaks in simple language, encouraging us to think, to understand, to seek purpose, to awaken, is he actually directing us towards something higher?
Always, even the simplest guidance is a doorway. It encourages the murid to reflect, to search, and to awaken spiritually. The outward teachings are the path we walk. The inner meaning is the destination we are meant to reach.
And the Qur'an, illuminated by the Imam's light, is what unites both journeys, the outer and the inner, the Zahir and the Batin, the guidance and the meaning. The light of the Imam and the light of the Qur'an are one, which means the Imam's light is accessible through the Qur'an itself.
Seema, all our Imams have repeatedly emphasized the importance of seeking clarity and understanding from the Qur'ani Sharif. They remind us that it is the Book of God, the source of guidance, and the foundation of faith. But what does it really mean when the Qur'an says in Surah Al-Nahl that it contains the explanation of all things? Surely, not every verse is immediately clear, nor does every reader understand it in the same way.
Exactly. That verse does not mean the Qur'an is instantly understood by everyone. It means the Qur'an is the benchmark, the single book that unites all believers. It is the reference point from which the Imam's guidance flows. When the Imam directs us toward the Qur'an, he is pointing us towards the standard that aligns the community. Without it, each person follows only their own understanding, and their interpretations scatter in different directions.
And that is why the Qur'an is paramount. When murids rely only on personal interpretation, each becomes a book unto themselves. But when they follow the Qur'an as the benchmark, they move together. Their diversity remains, but their direction aligns. The Qur'an's outer words guide the ethical life, and its inner light, which is the light of the Imam, who nourishes the intellect and awakens the soul. The Imam's farmhands, teachings, and prayers all draw from this single source. His guidance does not replace the Qur'an. It reveals it.
The Qur'an as benchmark for unity.
Seema, this introduction invites reflection. What does it truly mean for the Qur'an to be the benchmark? And how does the Imam's subtle emphasis on the Qur'an shape the murid's understanding of faith? More importantly, how might the inner light of the Qur'an, which is the light of the Imam, help the community move with unity, clarity, and purpose, and with the best results?
These questions are meant for each believer to contemplate within their own inner world. When the Imam says, "I do not have to see you physically for you to be with me. You are with me, always. And I am with you. I feel your presence all the time. I hope you feel mine." He is speaking from the spiritual world, not the physical one. His presence is not limited by sight or distance. It is an inward, subtle companionship that the believer experiences through the soul. This guidance cannot be understood only at the exoteric level. Its true meaning belongs to the esoteric dimension where the relationship between the believer's soul and the Imam's soul becomes the channel through which inner knowledge is received.
On the exoteric level, the Imam's words reassure the murid of spiritual closeness, comfort, and support. They strengthen faith, trust, and ethical living. But on the esoteric level, the same words point toward the deeper reality that the Imam's light is the source through which the Qur'an's inner meaning becomes accessible. His presence is the bridge between the believer and the world of subtle knowledge. And because Ismailism is an esoteric tradition, it reaches its completion through this inner relationship, the living connection between the soul of the murid and the soul of the Imam.
2 levels of guidance.
Seema, you've explained how the Imam's presence is inward and subtle. But how does his guidance actually operate on both the exoteric and esoteric levels at the same time? What does that dual operation mean for how a murid receives spiritual knowledge?
It means the Imam's guidance is never one-dimensional. Exoterically, it strengthens ethical life, decision-making, and awareness of Allah. It shapes how we live, how we act, how we relate to others. But esoterically, it directs the believer toward the subtle world of meaning, where the Qur'an becomes a living source of inner truth. His assurance of constant presence is not symbolic, it is metaphysical. It is the foundation of how the believer receives spiritual knowledge. Through the Imam's light, the Qur'an becomes the key to understanding the relationship between the soul of the believer and the soul of the Imam, a relationship that is the heart of esoteric Islam.
And before we can understand the Imam's prayer for life, meaning, purpose, and fulfillment, we have to return to the very beginning of our existence, to the moment when every soul made its first and most sacred promise. In Surat al-Araf, God gathers all souls before their earthly birth and asks them, "Am I not your Lord?" And the souls reply, "Yes, indeed, we testify." Qur'an chapter 7 verse 172. This primordial covenant is the soul's original recognition of its Rabb, the one who nourishes, sustains, cherishes, and brings the soul to its perfection. In that pre-eternal world, before the body, before time, before forgetfulness, the soul knew its Lord intimately and responded with complete certainty, love, affection, obedience, and without hesitation.
The covenant and the soul's first recognition.
Seema, you mentioned the primordial covenant, but what does it really mean for the soul to have recognized its Rabb before entering this world? How does that recognition remain within us even when the body forgets?
The covenant is not symbolic at all. It is the soul's first act of recognition, the moment when the inner world acknowledged the Rabb as the nourisher of the soul and the sustainer of the intellect. Every soul bore witness to this truth, and that witness became part of its very nature. The Qur'an explains that this pledge ensures that no human being can claim ignorance. On the day of resurrection, no one can say, "I did not know my Lord," or "I was misled by my ancestors," because the soul already knew. It recognized its Rabb before entering this world, and that recognition remains within it, even if the body forgets.
And this is why the Qur'an invites us to reflect on verses such as those in Surah Al-Zumar, verses 55 to 59. These verses describe a deeply human moment, the moment when a soul looks back at its earthly life and realizes what it neglected. The Qur'an urges humanity to follow the best of what has been revealed before a sudden awakening arrives, an awakening that exposes how much of life was spent in forgetfulness. These verses remind us that the soul once knew its Rabb with complete certainty, and that the journey of faith is really the journey of remembering what the soul already recognized in the pre-eternal world.